Hi guys, it's Vicky, also known as Vicky as a Hufflepuff, and today I'm going to be talking about the much loved topic of discussion in this fandom, Snape. Basically I'm going to just be talking about my opinion and whether I think he was a good person, a villain or a hero. There isn't really a very straightforward answer to this, but all in all I do like him as a character. I think he's a very well written character, so props to JK for that. I've changed my mind a lot over time, so this might change in like a year's time or something, I don't know. But I started off liking him, but not like completely, obviously. Then I didn't like him, then I was kind of neutral about him for a while. Now I like him, but I do know and recognise that there are a lot of flaws to his character, and he wasn't like a particularly very nice person. I was rereading some of Deathly Hallows earlier just to get some ideas about his character, and I was reading his memories and I made like a whole load of notes on him, so I'm just going to get started. So first of all, obviously you can't deny he was a very brave character, and a lot of people don't like the whole name choice thing that Harry called his son Albus Severus, but I personally do understand, and to be honest I prefer the Severus bit over Albus, and I know most people don't like the Severus bit, but I completely understand where he's coming from, because Harry, being a Gryffindor, obviously values bravery and he'll probably want his children to be brave as well. So by calling his son Albus Severus, he's saying that he wants like him to be as brave as Snape was, basically, and he was very brave, and I do completely understand. I do get that maybe it's not the best because of other reasons, but for that I totally understand. Being a double agent with Lord Voldemort and Dumbledore would have been like the hardest thing ever, and I can't imagine like how hard it would be, because imagine if Voldemort like found out that he was a double agent or something like that, you know what I mean? Like each side thinks that he's spying for the other one, so it's really hard because, you know, a lot of people don't trust him. People on Voldemort's side don't trust him and people on Dumbledore's side don't trust him. So basically by doing that he's isolated himself to basically the only person who properly trusts him is Dumbledore. And I know how like Remus says if Dumbledore trusts him I do, but it's not the same thing. He's just going off Dumbledore's word, and Dumbledore's basically his only friend, and they're not even really friends if you think about it, because, you know, Dumbledore doesn't agree with a lot of things that Snape did in the past. As you can see in the chapter The Prince's Tale in Deathly Hallows, you can see how obviously Snape was not a very nice person and he was pretty selfish, and Dumbledore knew that, but Dumbledore was able to look past that, obviously, and, or I guess, forgive him, because obviously he wanted him to be double agent for him and spy on Voldemort, and I honestly do admire him, but I know that he wasn't a very nice person. He was quite selfish when he was still a Death Eater. You know, he ran to Dumbledore and was like, he's planning to kill Lily, and he was not fussed about James or Harry dying, and you know, Dumbledore does say that he disgusts him, and things like that that do make people despise his character, and I completely understand, because he was not a very nice person at all, and he did care very much for Lily, but obviously, especially at that time, not completely, because if he completely cared for her then he would care about what happened to her husband and her son. Especially her son, he should try and protect her, which he did end up doing, because Dumbledore said, you know, let's make it so she doesn't die in vain, and he did go on to protect Harry, and you can see that even though he really doesn't like Harry from the moment he sees him, and I know that's unfair, but he did go through a lot of traumatic things when he was a child. You know, James bullied him like pretty badly, as you can see. Like he hung him upside down and dropped him on his head and was calling him names in front of everyone, and that is honestly disgusting. And I know a lot of people excuse it because he was like a child and he was bullying, and I get that Snape bullying like the kids when he's a teacher is completely different, and I think he did abuse his position as teacher, but if you think about it, you can't just say, oh, Snape was a bully and then end up liking Draco or James and Sirius, and especially Draco, I think, because Draco was a Death Eater, and I know Snape was as well, but Snape made up for that, and you can tell, I'm not saying that it cancels out all the bad things he did, but he did go on to do some very good things as well. So you have this one side of him which obviously he did really bad things, and you can tell that he did like regret things, and then he went on to be a spy for Dumbledore, and you know, he did absolutely everything he could to protect Harry and help them win the Wizarding War. And for them people to say that they like Draco, and I do like Draco, and I will go into Draco's character in a different video properly, but Draco, at the end of the day, he was a Death Eater, and I know that he may not have had a choice, but he did, like, Dumbledore offered him protection, and I understand that he probably wouldn't have, like, completely trusted that he could be able to do that just because he's seen how powerful Voldemort is and stuff. I completely understand that, but people excuse all, like, the bullying that he did and the fact that he was Death Eater, and he was going to kill Dumbledore, even though, like, he wasn't actually going to do it, but he was there with his wand out, he disarmed him, and those are obviously really bad things, and people completely excuse it because he's a child. And the thing is, by the time that happens, he is old enough to think for himself, and I understand that he's been put in this position where he's been brought up in this house where there's constantly Death Eaters and Voldemort is connected to his family, and, you know, his dad's been put in Azkaban. I know that's all very traumatic for him, but he is old enough to be able to sit down and think, like, what is best, like, what should I do? He was, so in Half-Blood Prince he would have been like 17, and that's completely old enough for him to be able to sort out things for himself and try and make his own decisions, rather than follow what his family wants. And I do understand that was a lot of pressure on him, but for people to like Draco and then say that they hate Snape for being a bully, you've got to think, like, what Snape's been through. I do not like the fact at all that he abused his position as a teacher. I think that's horrible. I think, especially, I know loads of people make this argument, but how he was Neville's worst fear when Neville's parents were tortured into insanity and he goes and visits them and they have no idea what's going on, they don't know who he is. Like, that's obviously very traumatic for him, and obviously being brought up in Hogwarts the same time that, like, Harry was there, he would have seen a lot of things go on. And he does know that there's, like, dark wizards out there, he knows there's Death Eaters, he knows there's Dementors, and yet his worst fear is his potions master. Like, that is horrible. Like, a teacher should not be a child's worst fear, especially a child like Neville who has so much to be scared of. Like, that shouldn't be allowed at all. And also how he was going to kill his pet, like, that's horrible. And I know a lot of people say, like, get over it, and I do completely agree. I think that if anything could change about Snape, I think that he should, like, let go of things and just think, you know what, James, he's dead now, you know what I mean? Like, you can't carry that with you. And I know it was also Sirius, but then obviously Sirius didn't have the best time, and then he soon died as well. But he should have let go of that. If there was something we could change, it would definitely be that. But I also don't think people give him enough credit, because he did, like, have a very hard time in school, and, you know, he could be properly traumatised from that, and the person that he was in love with was killed. He may not like Harry, but the thing is, he goes to Hogwarts and Snape has to teach him, and I think that's quite, like, not, it's kind of distressing for him to, like, have Lily's son there all the time. And I think I do understand, like, the dislike, and obviously he looks like his father and he doesn't act like him, but he's expecting him to, and, you know, Dumbledore says, you know, you see the things that you expect. I can't remember the exact quote, but it's along the lines of that. And he said that all the other teachers were saying that he's really likeable and humble, but Snape was saying the complete opposite. He was basically describing James Potter about Harry, just because that's what he had in his head. And the thing is, he was just kind of blinded by that, and I know he could let go, but that's, in some ways he can't help it, because it's just like his subconscious thinking that. I still don't think it's not excusable. I'm not trying to excuse him, but I'm just saying people don't really seem to understand, like, where he's coming from when he does and says things like that. Like, his dad was, like, really horrible to him, and to have his son there all the time, especially Harry, you know, the whole, like, he has his mother's eye thing, that's a constant reminder. Not even if he didn't have her eyes, like, the fact that he is her son, that's a constant reminder of, you know, this woman that he was in love with, and, you know, she's been killed, and it was partly his fault, and obviously he must feel absolutely terrible. He does say to Dumbledore, I wish I were dead. The fact was that Snape was very brave, and Dumbledore knew he was, and he said when their dark marks were, like, darkening and Karkaroff was saying that he would flee, and Snape says, oh, I'm not that much of a coward, and then Dumbledore does say, you're a far braver man than Karkaroff would ever be. And the fact that he killed Dumbledore, like, that is pretty big. And there's this scene that they cut out of the movie, it's a deleted scene. If you haven't seen it already, you should definitely go and watch it. It's before Dumbledore's killed. They did leave the McGonagall line in, I think. She says, like, oh, go to your houses, and there's a shot of Snape and he's standing there and there's, like, a choir. It's before he kills Dumbledore, obviously, and he knows what's coming, and he's standing there, and the look on his face, like, honestly, Alan Rickman, like, the best person to play Snape. No one could have played him better. You can see the look on his face, and I think they cut it out maybe for the reason that it might give too much away, but it's honestly, like, amazing. You should all go check it out and see what I mean by that. The fact that he had to kill Dumbledore is honestly heartbreaking, because Dumbledore is basically the only kind of friend he had, even though they weren't technically like friends, but Dumbledore's the only one that had like faith in him and that knew what was going on. You know, he told secrets to Dumbledore that no one else knew. No one else knew about like Lily and how he was protecting Harry. He wouldn't let anyone tell him, and he's the only one that properly knew about the whole double agent thing. And yeah, so the fact they had to kill Dumbledore off is like honestly heartbreaking, because he was left on his own. Obviously he had his like portrait to talk to, but it wasn't obviously the same thing as having him actually there to talk to. But honestly, I think Snape was so brave, and he isolated himself so much by being a double agent, because obviously by the Deathly Hallows everyone just thinks he's a Death Eater now, and he has to use the Confound's charm on Mundungus to tell him to suggest that they use Polyjuice Potion, because obviously he can't just tell them because he's a Death Eater now. But he does that, and he does try and help, and just completely isolates himself. And even though he's not isolated because he's surrounded by his fellow Death Eaters, but the fact is that he's not one of them, and he doesn't want to be there. And that's honestly, like, I can't imagine how that would feel, being surrounded by all these people who are just completely evil and just capable of like killing so many people, and that don't care for people's emotions. Even the Death Eaters didn't trust him. I don't think even Voldemort trusted him in the end, you know, how he killed him for the Elder Wand. But I think even if he didn't think that the Elder Wand belonged to him, he would have still killed him anyway in some way. Also, the fact is that he did love Lily, and he had the doe Patronus to show it. And I heard someone say, like, you know, how people's Patronuses usually like complement each other, like Ron and Hermione's complement each other, and Snape's just a copy of hers. But the thing is that like Dumbledore, by seeing a Patronus, knew that he did still love her, so I'm just going off Dumbledore's judgment here. And also the fact is that even though at the start he was like resentful and he just wanted to save Lily when he was still a Death Eater, the fact is that he went on to actually protect Harry, and he protected him even though he really didn't like him, and no matter how much he like looked like his father and reminded him of his father, he still did protect him. And obviously he didn't want anyone to know that he was protecting him. Like, Dumbledore's the only one that knew, and he said don't tell anyone. I honestly think that he's doing that out of love for Lily. And even though he was selfish at times, I think that he did have this very selfless love for her, and he did want to protect her son. You know, Dumbledore may have had to tell him that, but I think he really did want to protect Harry, and he did all that he could to. He also agreed that he would try and protect Hogwarts after Dumbledore died and make sure that it wasn't left to the mercy of the Carrows. And he really did do that, and I think he did all he could. I think he was so brave. Like, Snape like went through a lot. Like, as a child, obviously, before they went to Hogwarts, he was friends with Lily, and obviously he liked her. And then they went to Hogwarts, and obviously he was kind of in this group of like the Death Eaters group, and obviously that's not very good. But then the thing is, people are using this yet again as a reason why they don't like him, and then liking Draco, but essentially that's the same thing. So if you like Draco, but he was in this like Death Eater group at school, I don't understand why you'd use the fact that Snape was in a Death Eater group at school as evidence as why you don't like him, because the fact is he may have gone on to be a Death Eater as an adult, but then he turned to like the good side, and you play his part very well, and you can tell that he really was on the right side because of all he did. And the thing is, he didn't do it he didn't tell anyone that he was doing it, you know. It's not like he wanted glory for it, and he didn't, like, most of the people on the good side didn't even know he was on the good side. They all thought he was a Death Eater, but he did do what he could from inside. Obviously with the help of Dumbledore's portrait, he did help them whilst staying as a Death Eater, so that Voldemort would trust him and that he could still work from the inside. The fact is that, you know, obviously only Harry knew once he saw in the Pensieve the memories, and I think that does show again like just how brave he is, because he didn't tell anyone. He really did stick to the whole Death Eater thing, even though he clearly didn't want to be on that side. And I can't imagine how that would feel, being surrounded by all these people, being expected so much of as well. I just think that a lot of the time when people use evidence as to why they don't like Snape, it's not that good, because then they also like people that are essentially the same. I just don't really understand. I think that he did do bad things and he wasn't a great person, but I think every character has flaws, every person has flaws, and that just makes him human, honestly, because he it's only kind of normal to be resentful towards someone if they remind you of someone that maybe like bullied you like a lot during school, and it does make sense to me. I know a lot of people do things like that, and you may not be doing it intentionally, but you know how Dumbledore said like it's because he was expecting Harry to be like that he was thinking like that in his head. So it's not entirely his fault that he saw Harry like that, but I know he could have been better and he could have like let it go and stuff. I think a lot of people just decide to concentrate on all the bad things that he did, whereas instead of like thinking about how brave he was and how much he risked. You can also see in the chapter The Prince's Tale, you know, his memories and how he would act around Lily, and I think he did care very deeply for her, and obviously he called her, you know, the bad bird from Muggleborn. And you know, after they were bullying Snape, and then he was gonna sleep outside the Gryffindor common room because he felt really bad for it, and she did say like, oh, why am I different, because he calls other people Muggleborns, like, and I get that, but then you can also see that he's kind of willing to change for Lily, and I get that he doesn't change to other people, but like it is a start, him actually liking her. At the end of Deathly Hallows you can see another couple of good things that he did without anyone knowing besides the portrait of Dumbledore. You know, how he obviously put the sword in the lake and cast the Patronus. You know, he did that without anyone knowing. Also, obviously, like I mentioned earlier, suggested a Polyjuice potion so that Harry would be safe. He did a bad thing in Deathly Hallows, but it can be completely explained, and it's that he told Voldemort and the Death Eaters the right date for Harry's removal from Privet Drive. But Dumbledore told him to do that, and he said because he wanted him to be on the same side, and he was used to Snape getting information, so he didn't want to stop doing that and it'd be suspicious. Obviously, it all ended up okay, and he did suggest Polyjuice potions so they couldn't actually figure out which Harry it was. Yeah, I think I have been talking for ages. I don't know how I'm going to edit this and make it fairly watchable and short, but that's basically my opinion. I'm probably going to be doing a video on Snape with my friend. She doesn't like Snape and I do, so we're going to have like a little debate thing. So if you want to see that, then make sure you subscribe, leave a like on this video, leave your opinions about Snape in the comments below, and I will try and read as many of them as I can, and I will try and answer them. Also follow me on all my social medias, they'll be in the description, and feel free to talk to me about different characters like this. And I would love to do another video. I've got ones planned. I want to do ones on Draco, Dumbledore, so if you want to see them, please tell me and I will do them soon. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.